Barbarian. Tess Marshall is in Detroit for a job interview and has booked an Airbnb to stay in. When she gets there, she discovers she has to share the place with a stranger called Keith.
Want some tea?
Tess goes on to actually warm up to him, but it doesn't last long. When Tess explores the house, she ends up getting locked in a creepy old room. Keith comes and frees Tess, but later, Tess finds him in a hidden tunnel badly injured. Then, a huge, misshapen woman appears as the monster and kills him. So much for a budding romance. The story cuts suddenly to a character named AJ, who is a Hollywood star and the owner of the Airbnb. He arrives overconfident and ends up trapped by the monster along with Tess. Horrifyingly, the movie reveals that a man named Frank was behind all this. There were videos of how he had forced a woman to have his child, then made those children have children, until this creature was formed. Frank commits suicide, Tess and AJ try to escape, and in the chase up the water tower, AJ pushes Tess off to save himself. But the monster saves Tess instead.
Come get your baby!
The real monster in this film turns out to be men like Frank and AJ, and the twist makes Tess and audiences be more empathetic towards the monstrous woman. Final Destination 5. Sam Lawton and his co-workers are in a bus going on a company retreat to have fun. But fun wasn't really in the books for them. Sam, who was recently dumped by his girlfriend Molly, gets a vision that everyone on the bus will die except Molly. In panic, he quickly rushes everyone off the bus. Confused, everyone follows him out and watches as his vision comes true.
How did you know?
They all meet a coroner at the company funeral who warns them that they've cheated death and now it's coming for them. But like every horror movie, they all ignore the warning and the coroner's words start becoming true. First is Candace, the gymnast, who is taken out by a gust of chalk and breaks her neck. Peter, her boyfriend, falls into depression after witnessing that. The people who were on the bus all begin dying one by one, until, in a construction accident, Nathan kills Roy. They all find out that by killing someone, you take their life expectancy. Remember depressed Peter? He didn't like that. He still thought that Molly surviving and Candace dying was unfair, so he crashes Sam and Molly's date and tries to kill Molly. He doesn't succeed and gets killed by Sam. Thinking they're free, Molly and Sam board a flight to Paris, and on the plane, they see two teenagers fighting and getting kicked off. And here's the twist. They're the main characters from the first Final Destination. Sam overhears the flight attendant when a passenger asks her what happened, and realizes death's caught up to them after all. The Wicker Man. Sergeant Neil Howie, a devout Christian, receives an anonymous letter from an isolated island called Summer Isle about a missing girl named Rowan Morrison. When he arrives at Summer Isle, the atmosphere is creepy with the classic cult eeriness we all know. Something is off from the beginning, with the people following a Celtic pagan religion, having a hive mentality and altogether denying that they know any Rowan.
She doesn't belong to this island.
Howie rejects the advances of the innkeeper's daughter and finds pictures of every annual harvest where one young girl was the May Queen. The most recent one, however, was missing. Upon being led to Rowan's grave and being permitted to exhume it by the islanders' lord, he discovers that their prosperity comes from a type of tree strain the lord's grandfather developed and encouraged as the blessings of the gods. He finds the missing picture of the harvest with Rowan standing amongst them and comes to find out that whenever there is a bad harvest, they sacrifice a young girl to their gods. Rowan must have been selected for the sacrifice. He goes back to his seaplane but finds out it doesn't work anymore and he's trapped on the island. So he knocks out the innkeeper, steals his costume and mask, and goes to find Rowan at the harvest. He finds her and runs with her to a cave but is intercepted by the townspeople and Rowan happily runs back to them.
Did I do it right?
Howie finds out that Rowan was never the sacrifice to begin with. It was always him, willing, virgin, and king-like. They had lured him here, and he had fallen for it. The tribesmen danced as they put him in the Wicker Man and burned him to death. To think he would have been saved if he didn't reject the innkeeper's daughter. Bodies, bodies, bodies. Bee goes with her girlfriend Sophie to a hurricane party with the rest of Sophie's friends, hosted at a mansion owned by David. They drink, do drugs, and eventually decide to play a game in the pitch dark called Bodies, 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 where one acts as a murderer. The game ends up getting heated when David keeps provoking Greg, and he storms out. The girls keep partying until the power suddenly goes out. They go to find the breaker, and also David to bring Greg back. Before they could manage to get help, David dies.
Other stairs.
Panicked and stunned, the girls believe that someone has killed David, and Greg is the prime suspect. They go through Greg's stuff and confront him after finding a knife and a map. Emma escalates the scuffle and B ends up killing Greg with a kettlebell. They all distrust one another and die one by one. Emma falls down the stairs, Jordan shoots Alice, and B pushes Jordan off the staircase. Since it had been revealed that Sophie had cheated on B with Jordan, Jordan tells B in her dying breaths to check Sophie's phone. B and Sophie have an altercation over Sophie's phone and both fall into the pool. When they get out, B finds David's phone instead.
Frozen with nowhere to go, bitch. Pop a COD.
In the most ridiculous twist, they find out that David had just accidentally killed himself, and B's phone had service all along. Get out! Chris Washington gets an invitation from his girlfriend Rose to spend a weekend at her rich parents' estate. Though he's nervous because he's Rose's first black boyfriend, he agrees. Rose's parents are the ideal creepy couple. Dean, a neurosurgeon, and Missy, a hypnotherapist, live with the two black servants, Walter and Georgina, who both act weird. According to Rose, there's a big party coming up. That night, restless Chris goes out for a cigarette when Missy offers to help him with his addiction and hypnotizes him without his consent.
Wait.
Chris wakes up in his bed the next day, disoriented, and doesn't feel the need to smoke. Credit where credit's due, it worked. At the party, Chris feels more unsettled. All the people there are white except one guy named Logan. Chris tries to take a picture of Logan, but his flash is accidentally on, and the guy's personality completely shifts when the flash hits.
Get out!
Chris decides to leave, and Rose agrees to leave with him. While he's packing, he finds pictures of Rose with her past partners, including Walter and Georgina, all of them black. Realizing Rose has lied to him and has been a part of her parents' plan all along, he tries to escape, but Missy uses a hypnotism trick and sends him back to the sunken place. Chris wakes up tied to a chair, watching a creepy videotape that explains how Rose's grandfather developed a way to transfer consciousness and used it on black people. To avoid getting hypnotized again, Chris stuffs his ears with cotton from the chair and manages to run away. He kills Dean and Missy on the way out and is chased by Rose and Walter, but he flashes Walter with his phone to get him out of the trance. Walter then takes the gun from Rose, shooting her and himself, and allowing Chris to escape with his rescue friend Rod. Frailty. Agent Wesley Doyle gets visited by Fenton Meeks, who tells him that his brother Adam is the culprit in the God's Hand serial killings. He says Adam committed suicide and Fenton buried him in a rose garden in their hometown of Thurman. On the way, Fenton tells Doyle the story of his family. When Fenton and Adam were young boys, their father claimed he got visions from God and had a mission to kill humans that were actually demons. Fenton didn't believe it, but Adam started to have faith and even claimed that he was getting the visions. They do say the psychotic apple doesn't fall far from the psychotic tree. Fenton tells the story about how his father used to abduct and kill people he believed to be demons and asked the boys to assist. Fenton repeatedly tries to expose his father, but is punished and locked in a cellar. As they arrive at the garden, Fenton reveals he's actually Adam. What's more, his father's visions were real, and so were Adam's, and the people they had killed were horrible criminals. Adam touches Doyle and sees that he is a demon. He kills Doyle, confident that God will protect him and nobody will find out. Another FBI agent, Hull, wraps up the case with the current sheriff of Thurman, who is actually Adam too, a hell of a judge, jury, and executioner. Saw. Adam Stanheight and Dr. Lawrence Gordon wake up in a beat-down bathroom, chained by their ankles. In the room with them is a dead body, with a tape player and revolver on it. Adam and Lawrence find audio tapes in their pockets and play them. Adams tells him to escape, and Lawrence's tells him to kill Adam by 6 o'clock or his family will die. When they find hacksaws that can't cut through the chains but can through flesh, they realize that they are a part of the serial killer Jigsaw's game. Lawrence tells Adam how he used to be a suspect in the investigation and that he's been told not to trust Adam. Adam admits that he had been told by the investigating officer, Detective Tapp, to spy on Lawrence and to take pictures that show that Lawrence had an affair, although one picture shows someone else. But they're out of time. Lawrence's daughter Allison puts up a fight when Zepp goes to kill her, which attracts the attention of Tapp, who had been monitoring the house. He rushes in and shoots, allowing Lawrence's wife and daughter to escape. Zepp escapes too and manages to kill Tapp in their conflict. Meanwhile, Lawrence cuts off his own foot and gets the revolver to shoot Adam. Zepp appears, trying to shoot Lawrence, but Adam attacks him and bludgeons him to death. Weird redemption, but okay. Lawrence leaves the room to get help and Adam searches Zepp's body. However, he realizes that Zepp is not the killer, just a player in Jigsaw's game. Then Jigsaw reveals himself as the body that was on the floor this whole time. Adam tries to shoot him, but he electrocutes him again and leaves him there to die. Scream. Teenagers in a quiet California town start looking over their shoulders after the murder of Casey Becker and her boyfriend by a masked killer we all now know and love as Ghostface.
Why do you want to know my name?
I want to know who I'm looking at.
This especially affects Sydney Prescott, who was dealing with the trauma of her mother's murder a year ago. The killer attempts to kill her, but she struggles against it, and the killer disappears. Soon after, her boyfriend Billy climbs through her window, which makes her accuse him of being the killer. The town's deputy Dewey and reporter Gail are on the case, following it until a big party is held by Sydney's friends, Stu and Randy, who are big horror film geeks. The killer wanted to come to the party too, and he sure brought life to it. One by one, he stabs whoever he can find, including Billy, and tries to hunt down Sydney, who narrowly escapes. This leaves Randy and Stu as the only two suspects. Except when her stabbed, bleeding boyfriend reappears, Sydney gets the bright idea to give him the gun for safety. That's when the truth's revealed.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Billy resented Sydney because her mother had an affair with his father and broke up their marriage, and he wanted to frame Mr. Prescott. Stu was his accomplice. In the end, Stu gets stabbed by an umbrella afterward in the final struggle, and Billy gets shot in the head, ending their murderous rampage. The Sixth Sense. Malcolm Crowe, a child psychologist, comes back home with his wife Anna after being awarded for his work. However, one of his old patients, Vincent, makes an appearance and shoots Malcolm over his unsuccessful attempts to treat Vincent's hallucinations.
You failed me!
Vincent then proceeds to shoot Malcolm and then himself. Malcolm recovers, and the next fall he gets a patient, a young boy named Cole. Cole tells Malcolm that his hallucinations are actually ghosts that don't know they're dead and that he can speak to them. At first, Malcolm considers dropping the case, the rational thing to do when a kid talks about seeing ghosts. But he revisits Vincent's case and finds reason to believe that Vincent had the same ability. Realizing Cole is telling the truth, he encourages Cole to help the ghosts depart from this world. When the doctor and patient say their goodbyes, Cole suggests that Malcolm talk to Anna when she's asleep. When Malcolm gets back, he sees that Anna had been watching their wedding tape to sleep, and then she drops his wedding ring from her limp hand. He realizes he doesn't have it on, and that he has been a ghost this whole time. Psycho. Marion Crane drives through a storm to a motel where she meets Norman Bates, who runs the motel, and finds out about his domineering, aggressive mother. After overhearing a conversation between them, she gently advises Norman to leave this place for something better, and he explains his sad but noble motives as her only caretaker.
I couldn't do that. Who'd look after her?
Then, Marion makes the classic horror movie mistake. She goes to take a shower. There, she's attacked by Mrs. Bates with a knife and killed. With the protagonist dying in the first 40 minutes of the movie, you'd definitely be confused if you showed up late to this one. Norman cleans up the mess and disposes of her body, while her lover, Sam, and her sister, Lila, try to look for the missing Marion. As they investigate, they find out that his mother has actually been dead for years.
I helped Norman pick out the dress she was buried in.
Sam and Lila go to the motel themselves, during which they are attacked by Mother again. They survive, and Norman is captured. A psychologist reveals at the end of the movie that Norman wasn't just dressing up as Mother, but had dissociative identity disorder and assumed her identity as a way to keep her alive, killing whatever threatened the illusion. The movie ends with him truly losing himself to the persona, all traces of Norman lost.